Cooper, Sky. Cheers, James.
Well, Sean, you've had an 8-day gap. You've not had an 8-day gap between now and lockdown. So how have you used that 8 days, and has it been something that you've been able to recharge the players and yourselves a little bit?
Well, we've given the players a few days off after the last game. I think it's fair to say they've certainly earned that. And partly to refuel, training in the week and then another down day and then training obviously today and tomorrow building up to the game. So we've always tried to find the balance. We've given them days off during this lockdown period despite all the games because we thought it was really important on the mental side of the game. And we've been happy with the way that's been delivered and the way they've used that wisely to rest and recuperate and be ready to go.
You were pretty much safe going into lockdown. Is their hunger to do more than just be safe and maybe set records impressed you?
I don't think it started out like that. I think it started out with return in good shape, return ready to perform, particularly mentally. I remember doing an interview a few weeks, I think it was a couple of weeks, before we came out of lockdown. And I did mention, I said, I've had a Zoom call with every player all at once, and they all agreed, hands down, we're definitely ready to get on with it. So I've been pleased with that mentality. I think that's shown through the performances, despite all the challenges that we've had with varying situations. So delighted for them as much as anyone because it's paid them back. That mentality and that clear-mindedness to go and perform has paid us back.
But with one game to go, you as I say, you stand on the brink of setting a record for your Premier League points total, which shows that progress is being made and you're going in the right direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, the league table is important, quite obviously. It's important to the chairman to keep getting the money in. It's important to me of a sort. But I think really I'm looking beyond that at the performance levels, because I've always thought if you get that right, you increase your chances of delivering, of course, and getting wins anyway. So I've been looking not just the table and the point tally, but also the way we've done it, the performance levels, all the details that count. And I've been really pleased with that.
Injury-wise, Charlie Taylor, any chance of being involved on Sunday?
No, Charlie won't. The other ones I've got a list, unfortunately, as you know. Woody's back, obviously, and so's Johan, Robbie as well. But Matt Loughton won't, Corky won't, Barnsley won't. So yeah, they're not gonna be. And Charlie, sorry, they won't make it for Sunday.
And Ben Mee as well. But with those kind of four players that you're missing, are you?
Ben.
Yeah.
Every time I remember one, I forget one off the list. There's that many.
But are you confident you can use the pre-season to get them fit for whenever we start again?
Well, we're hopeful. We don't know the exact date still, and that might be coming out, over the next day or two. That would be helpful to pre-plan and replan, if you like, and look at where these players are injury-wise. The only one who's probably got a slightly longer one really now is Corky, and that's obviously with having sort of ankle surgery that went very well, very clean and simple, but it will take a bit of time for that to settle.
A final question for me, and everyone's being asked it today, VAR, just your general impressions of what's happened. I know you're a fan of that technology, but whether it's been applied right, since we've been back these last 8 games.
Yeah, I think pre-lockdown it was forming a more simplistic way of working, and then during or after lockdown, it seems to have been. There's been some crazy moments. I think. I still think it's a good thing. I still think it's needed. The amount that's involved in these games and what it is, with these games. Then I think it is needed and I think it has to be there. It obviously continues to need work to streamline it and adjust. I think the referees continue to look at how their gut instinct to referee and the monitors, give them a view. Constant talk about using the monitors, etc., etc. I personally think that'll slow the game down further, so I'm not as keen on that one. I think people in the studio should do that. But I'm not the powers that be. They'll have to decide that. But generally, I remain a fan of it. I just think the margins are so tight. I know I've mentioned it before, but when you look at our penalty history, just us as a club and our history in the Premier League, incredible how off the stats we are. So therefore, VAR giving penalties against the ones we haven't had could be a big difference on your season. So I'm probably looking at it from our point of view, a Burnley Football Club, rather than the bigger picture, and that is their margins. They could be vital. You don't know.
Top stuff. Thank you. Good luck at the weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Andy will come next to you. Andy Sixsmith, BLP.
Afternoon, Sean. You've enjoyed so many achievements at Burnley. How big an achievement in context do you think that this season has been, given everything that has gone on during the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think we'll reflect on it as being a really big achievement. I think at the moment we're just getting on with it like we tend to do. But I think over the summer period, however long that lasts, I think there will be a look at it and a view of it where people go, well, hang on a minute, they've delivered through all sorts of different challenges. And that's all credit to my staff and the players.
You talk about challenges. I think I was reading somewhere that you're now the third longest serving manager now in England. How much are you still enjoying your time and your challenges at Burnley, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the enjoyment varies. It's, the longer in the tooth you get, particularly in the Premier League, you understand it more. You understand the goods, bads and indifference of it. It is a continued challenge. There's no two ways about it. But I think that the fuel that you need is certainly, in my case, is still there. I think that the demands I put on myself and the staff and the players and how we want to go about things, there's certainly a thirst for that. And I think that hasn't been adjusted, even with having a really strong finish to the season. If we hadn't had such a strong finish, I don't think that would adjust that. I think it's a natural thing for me to have that feeling of pushing, so if it's natural to me, I'll put it into the staff, or I try and add it into the staff and then into the group. The mentality for myself and the staff and the players has been very clear-minded, I think, through all the different challenges of this season.
We talk about the team's achievements, one of them probably being unbeaten at home since New Year's Day now. Hugely impressive from the team's perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, the stats of the Premier League, it's hard to come by them when you're us. It's... And the run of games we've had, the run of points, the run of wins, the clean sheets, these are big markers for us because, I would say it's a restart every sort of pre-season for us. We don't take it as a given, that's for sure. People often talk about us being a recognised Premier League club. It's not that easy. To be a recognised Premier League club when you're talking of the top teams, maybe. But outside of that, we've seen the varying challenge of the Premier League and how teams can fluctuate. So we certainly don't take it for granted. But there are some really key markers and some strong markers been laid down this season, without doubt.
And just one player in particular, Nick Pope, one clean sheet away from potentially winning the Golden Glove. Just reflect back on his season and how important he's been, how impressive he's been throughout the season for you.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of a tough season with injury and stuff like that, and getting back to where he wants to be, I think has been really pleasing for him and for us. He's good around the group. I think he respects the group. He respects the team that's playing in front of him. And when called upon, he makes big saves. But not only his big saves. So I mentioned recently he's forming as an all-rounder now. I think his voice is getting stronger. I think his organisational skills are getting better. His awareness of decision-making, he continues to be more accurate, if you like, when to come across his, when not to, when to come off his line, when to read the game earlier. All these things are really important to a goalie, other than the obvious, which is stopping it going in the net, which is the most important thing. So I think he's becoming a good package. I think he's putting it together nicely, along with the other keepers, the challenge they give him, and of course Billy Mercer, who's done a great job.
And just one final one from me on Brighton. A lot being made about Graham Potter and obviously changing the philosophy at the club really at the start of the season. Of course, safe from relegation now. He's done a really, really good job down at the MX, hasn't he?
I think there's a lot of managers, for many different reasons. The challenges are seemingly different and judged differently, and the perception judged differently for each club. Who's doing what for what reason and what's the outcome. So I think I respect all of the managers. I think it's a really tough job. Obviously, I know it well. And so, I think all the managers give their best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't know a manager who doesn't give everything they've got. And I'm sure he's doing that.
Thanks, Sean. Best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Jed, will come to you. Jed Mills, BBC Radio Lancs.
Thank you, Pete. Hi, Sean. You all right? Just a week. You've had now over a week actually since the last game. Has it been nice to get on the training pitch, or has it been very much a rest and recoup?
No, more. Well, as much rest, not necessarily more, but as much. We've tried to find the balance. A few days off, few down days after a lot of football, and the mental demands. I thought. Strange game at Norwich, kind of flattish feel. Obviously, there's some reasons for that with them having gone down and stuff. So I think it was appropriate to get a few down days. They've come in and been nice and bright in the training days this week, so we're hopeful that that's worked. We won't know that for sure until the whistle blows on Sunday, of course.
Will there be potentially any risk taken with some players that might be maybe not 100% fit for this weekend?
No, I tend to not do that anyway, unless it's absolutely necessary. I prefer players to be almost overly fit before I play them. There's no one extra I don't think will make it. So therefore, we'll just be as cautious as we can to make sure that players who are out, we're not rushing them back, we're not forcing them back in. We want them to be as right as possible and available.
Will it be a case of maybe blooding some of the youngsters, giving them a chance for this weekend?
No, I doubt it. I think not because we don't want to. It's just that, the chairman wants every penny he gets hands on, like most chairmen do. So with all due respect, some of the young players here are good players, and we think they've developed, certainly from working with the first-team group after this lockdown period. But I still don't think many of them are quite ready to start. They might get a glimmer from the bench, of course, but I think starting's a different thing in the Premier League. And, the thing that sometimes is not documented is, as a manager, you've got to be fair to them as well, by the way. So, I've got to judge when I think they will handle it and they'll deliver, because if not, you're not being fair to them. And sometimes you can get hurt by that experience. If you put in too early and you can't quite handle what it is, that can actually, hold you back a little bit. So we've got to be careful with that as well, to find the right balance when they are ready, as against throwing them in for the sake of throwing them in.
Have some of them been knocking on your door, though, asking for that chance?
Yeah, of course. You can imagine they all knock on my door.
I don't
know where you got that one from. That's a peculiar one. No, that won't be happening.
No, I was going to say, but do they not? Do they not knock on the door and say, "Can I have a chance?" Or
if they did, they know that I'd just give them that look and they'd disappear. They'd earn their spurs, and when they're ready to knock on my door, they'd come and knock on my door. But until they're ready, they'll not be knocking on my door. I can assure you that.
So you're not the kind of manager that kind of likes that wants them knocking on your door.
It's not about like or loathe. It's about earning the right. It's about respect. When you're 18 and you just got in the first team squad and you come knocking on the door, trust me, that is not happening in this culture and environment.
You've been on a brilliant run since January. What do you think has been the change from what happened before then to what's happened now?
I don't think you can put your finger on it, other than I think the players have been extremely diligent in the lockdown period away from what we do here, and they've got their awards for that, because loads of different clubs will come back and you think you've got everything in place. Do you know what? You're never quite sure until the whistle blows. And it could be argued we didn't have everything in place at Man City. But equally, I argued straight after the game. I said, no, there was a lot of good signs from what we want to do. We were just playing against one of the best teams and they hurt you. I said that immediately after the game. I've obviously been pleased to be proven somewhat right, because they would have been foolish words if you don't. But no, I think the players they've respected the lockdown period for themselves and their families, first of all, but also because of their profession. They've come back. They've been very, very clear-minded in the challenge right in front of them. They've had a lot of challenges. We're seeing some very good players and people leave and seen through that, and some very, very good players and people have been injured. So to think that they've got on with it and just seen through all of that is, I'm absolutely delighted for them as much as anyone else.
You talked about being that recognised Premier League team and how hard it is every single year. Does it get harder every year as a manager, and why is that?
Well, I was actually talking about the fact it's hard to be recognised as an absolute sort of Premier League team, and I think the realities are, because I don't think you can. There's not many teams who can, by the way, but I think some you'd probably edge your bets and go, yeah, they've signed a few players, they've done this, they've done that. So there's some you'd probably edge your bets. I always think that we're in that kind of zone where we have to take it on with a clear-mindedness. It's improbable, not impossible, it's improbable that we spend a fortune. So therefore, we're often working with the players to continue their development whilst adjusting the squad where we can and keeping that hungry edge. And like I say, it sounds all easy. It's not that easy. But to find the balance and that respect level for them as people and them as players for this football club, I think we've done well over that. We've done well over time with that. But yeah, again, it comes down to the players. I'm a massive fan of the players. I can only guide them. At the end of the day, they have to take ownership and they have to deliver it. And I think they do that fantastically well here.
The transfer window, obviously, it could change, couldn't it? Obviously, because it's coronavirus. People saying that there might be just a complete restart on what has been pretty crazy over the last few years. Do you believe in that things might change a little bit in the transfer market, as in money and wages, and where are you shopping in this window?
Not at Harrods, it's fair to say, but I think there's a number of challenges, and I think for all clubs, and it doesn't look so far, or some of the noises about transfers and possible transfers, it's fair to say the numbers look pretty big to me still. So I don't imagine that it's going to. I certainly don't think there's going to be any collapse in the market. It may slow down somewhat. The big clubs are probably still going to continue. The lesser so are probably going to spend less, I imagine, and work with the groups they've got maybe slightly more. The other markets, one of our historic, markets is the Championship, possibly. There might be some clubs that really want money, but then the players have got to be good enough, regardless of money. You try and sign players who are good enough to develop into Premier League players. That even then, the money, of course, money is important in football, but it's not the only thing that's important. It's trying to get the right players, regardless of the fee, the right players who you believe, or I believe in our case, and my staff believe, can develop, can push the group and mould themselves into Premier League players. And over time, we've done well with it. But that doesn't mean there's a guarantee on the next ones that we try and bring in, because it's a very difficult skill, recruitment. And I don't think there's the absolute given moment that anyone's got magic eyes on it. I think a lot of it goes into data analysis, the balance of knowing the people involved, and still then it can still go wrong. So recruitment is one of the most difficult things, I think, in football.
There'll be some bargains to be had in the lower leagues.
We don't know yet, because, like I say, the market hasn't quite, found its feet. It hasn't found its level. And as I suggest, you can buy any player you want and just call it a bargain, but it's only a bargain if they can handle the Premier League and do well. It's not a bargain if they can't.
But cheers, Sean. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jed.
Thanks, mate.
Parker, PA.
Hi, Sean. From a couple of points there, can you just sum up the experience of what's basically been a bit of a mini season since the restart, and how that's felt compared to anything else you've done in your career?
I think it's felt a little bit like our days in the Championship, where the turnaround is very quick. It feels like you're constantly playing at times, not all the time, but there are windows in the Championship where it's just a constant flow of games. So I think that's been different. I think finding the balance, going away from the actual performances, finding the balance of rest and recuperation and training delivery and the levels of that has been different, because we've got good historic data and data markers here for obvious reasons. I've been here a long time. So we know where the players need to be, but it's harder to judge when you've got so many games. Recovery, of course, is important. Mental recovery is important. So it's been actually quite interesting. I'm bound to say it in quite a positive way, because we've had positive results. I think some teams would be finding it probably a lot harder and a lot more confusing, because they haven't maybe done as well. But when you have positive results, you think that your work is going quite well.
Yeah, I was going to say, clubs have reacted in different ways. We've seen some people who are doing really well sort of fall off a bit of a cliff when they've come back, and other teams turn it around. For yourself, it was about maintaining a really strong level that you'd found going into this situation.
Yeah, that's been most pleasing to me. I think, even during when we had a tough run, a few questions asked, I was still saying then that I thought we had to find consistency, but also consistency within a performance. So, within a 90 minutes, there were spells where we'd been really good, and then we'd shut down for 10 or 15 minutes, and we'd lost games. So I think the consistency of both has been good. I think we've been consistent with the run of games and the points and the wins. But I think equally the consistency within a game period of 95 minutes, let's say, I think we've been consistent with all the habits and all the basics that we need to do in order to get what we want. And I think that's been pleasing.
You talked about some of the questions and the difficulties you faced early on in this situation. It led to a lot of speculation around a number of things. Going into the off-season, is all that put to bed as far as you're concerned?
It's always been there since I've been here. So it's not new ground, to be honest. It was just probably more documented. I'll just get on with my work here. I always have done, and I will do until things change, whenever that day is. But I can assure you, it's another quote I've put out there many times. It's not new. Things change in football. They either change because you go somewhere or people have enough of you and they want you out. That's the way it goes. So all I do is work hard with my staff, with the players, continue to try and attempt to do things right and get successes. In our world, success is what's happening recently, and we try and do that. That's been my clear focus.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Lastly, for this section, Alex James, like us alive.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, Sean. You okay?
Yeah, good.
Good. Just quickly on Nick.
You've got good lighting. So you've got good lighting. You actually
thank you.
look like it's enhanced your evil look. I've got the darkness going on. You know what I mean?
Menacing.
And yeah, I'm light in mood.
Well, that's good.
I often am.
I know that exactly. Just quickly on Nick Pope. Obviously, a lot's going to be sort of discussed about him with the clean sheet record he's had this season. Sort of, what traits did you see when you bought him in from the?
Nick Pope was actually, let me tell you this, Nick Pope has actually recently become the new Danny Ings. There was a time when every single question about every single game and every single moment and every link with everything that was going on in the world was Danny Ings. At one point I thought he was going to be probably president. So I got offered that many questions about him. So Nick Pope has become the new Danny Ings.
I promise I've only got one question about him, but it is because he might end up with the Golden Glove. If I can't ask a question about him now, then
okay, that's fair. Nick Pope, you don't even need to ask a question. Doing brilliant, lovely fella. I like him on and off the pitch. I respect him. He's a brilliant pro, and I hope he gets the Golden Glove.
What traits did you see in him though when you signed him that sort of could
massive, physically huge? And I saw the fact I just went, wow, look at that big monster who runs around the goal, stopping it going in the net.
Given that he'd just gone to League One,
I told you I was light of mood.
I know, yeah, but I can't. I need at least a semblance of a serious answer as well at some point.
Well, that was serious, guised in flippancy, but it's still serious. Okay, I'll say it in this tone. When I first saw him, I thought he's a very big goalkeeper, and he comes out of his box and he commands his area. And I think he's got more to his game than people think because he's just been relegated. But I like relegated keepers because that means they've had to stay mentally strong to a really demanding season and probably let a lot of goals in, but still go out there and still perform and still look to keep them clean sheets. Better or not better?
Well, yeah, I think it was better actually. Yeah,
that was pretty good. I've got to be honest.
I know. I think it was better. Right, enough of Nick Pope.
Thank you. Great season. What a season, Danny Ings. Oh, amazing.
He got a vote in the Football Writers, didn't he, Danny Ings? So he must be doing something right, I suppose.
Yeah, because they all know what they're doing in the Football Writers. I thought that was good. I thought that was good banter. It
was, yeah, it was.
Don't misrepresent that. It's fun. That's fun, all right?
I agree, yeah. We don't have a clue what we're doing most of the time. So.
Well, including me. I just somehow survive.
On sort of next season, obviously you're going to finish with a minimum 54 points, which is the best Premier League return. We've got Leeds and West Brom coming up, who are sort of two established, biggish clubs who might well have money to spend. Where can you sort of go from here now, and how do you go into next season where it might not be a complete restart, and you can sort of look at pushing for a top 10 consistently?
I don't think it's as simple as saying we're going to push for a top 10 consistently. I think we push to be in the Premier League. That's always been the first marker. That won't change. The challenge of the Premier League is very difficult. I think teams coming up like Sheffield United have thrown that sort of thought away this season, because they've really not found it difficult. They've actually been superb for most of the season. The other clubs, if you look, have found it a lot more difficult, and teams historically do. And then, of course, you get one, done, and then suddenly someone says, oh, now you've got to do the second season. And then you go, all right, yeah, of course we have. And then you get two done. They go, now you've got to do the third season. So it's an ongoing challenge. Whether you're new to it or you're not new to it, for clubs like us, it's an ongoing challenge. Leeds have shown their spending power, I think, last season particularly, or seemingly from the numbers I read in the paper. Maybe they're wrong, but it seems like they've certainly put enough finance into that club to get it a better chance, if you like. And some very good performances, by the way. Let me make that clear. Good manager, good performances, so don't misrepresent that. Slaven, I'm a big fan of. I like Slaven a lot as a fella, as much as a manager. I'm pleased for them. Obviously, we'll wait and see what comes next. I'd obviously, knowing Neil Harris, who's a friend of mine, I'd like to see them do well, obviously. The challenge is there for all to see. I think whether you're coming up or you're not, you have to be ready for the Premier League, and you have to get ready to take whatever comes, because it is a very, very challenging league.
Do you think there'll ever be a time sort of in the near future or the next 5-10 years where Burnley might not be a club like us, and it might be a team that's been in the Premier League for 10-15 years and is at that sort of next level, if you like? Well,
I think there's an authenticity to my words. It's not that we don't see ourselves. If you look setup-wise, financially and all that, the balance of business meets players, then you could argue that, well, you kind of look like a representative of the Premier League. What I'm suggesting is my authenticity says that now we know this division very well. It's not that easy. It's very, very difficult to consistently perform in the Premier League and consistently be in the Premier League. So it's not that it can't be done. I'm just saying, I think if you start thinking like that, in my personal opinion, you think it's a given, possibly that leads to trouble. I just prefer to stay on the really hungry side of it and go, look, everything counts. Every inch of what we do counts. And we've done well with our thinking as coaches and management, as well as the players have done well with realising we have to give everything to get what we want.
I guess you could sort of see that with like a Watford doing the FA Cup final last season, and I think finishing the top half and suddenly they're in a relegation scrap going into the last game.
Well, I'm certainly not going to mention other clubs. They all have their challenges. No matter who you are in this division, every club will have a different theme, a media theme. They'll have a different perception from the outside looking in. They'll have a different noise about what they're meant to do as opposed to what they can do. They'll have their own challenges. Every club in the Premier League has a variance of that.
And just on looking ahead to sort of the summer and the window and on recruitment, we all know the sort of financial area that Burnley are working in and the constraints you work under. Would you say there's sort of a consensus from yourself, the recruitment department, the chairman, that more bodies are needed to replace the Jeff Hendricks, and at least the squad is going to need it?
I don't know. All I know is we're working hard with the right situations. Or to align the right situations. The decision doesn't come down to me. Inevitably, that's the chairman's decision. We can only align what we think is right and see if that gets taken forward.